I had always been fascinated by abandoned buildings and creepy places. I used to do some urban exploring in my home city when I was younger, but in my 20s I got a job and, well, life happened. I got married, divorced, moved to a new town, and tried to start a new life. Even though I'm not as athletic as I used to be, I can manage myself. So when I saw a house on the outskirts of town that looked like it had been empty for years, I knew I had to explore it. I waited until dark and made my way to the house. The moon was full, and I could see the broken windows and peeling paint. I had a small flashlight in case the inside was too dark. I jumped over the fence quite unskillfully and bent some of the rusty metal. The front door was locked, so I found a window that was already broken and climbed inside. Flashlight time. At first, I was excited by the thrill of the adventure, but as I started exploring the house, I realized something was off. There was this smell that I can't quite remember now, but made me shiver. I never found places with signs of people living in them before, but this wasn't like that either. It seemed a bit more artificial. As I made my way through the house, I heard a noise coming from outside. I cautiously made my way to one of the rooms and peeked outside. What I saw made my blood run cold. There was a figure standing near the spot where I jumped over the fence, facing away from me. It was hunched over, and I couldn't get a clear view of it, but it seemed to be about my height. I could see that it was wearing tattered clothes, and its hair was matted and tangled. I knew I had made a mistake. I had broken into the wrong house. I tried to back away slowly, but my foot hit a loose floorboard and it creaked loudly. I closed my eyes in fear. I knew I had to check if that man was still at the fence. It took me a few seconds to finally get the courage to do it, and oh, surprise, he wasn't there. Then I heard the sound of the front door being unlocked. I scrambled out the window and ran. Damn it, in hindsight, it was an awful idea, but I was about to shit my pants. After all these years of exploring abandoned places, and this is the first time I encounter someone, I had grown reckless. I know that now. I heard the sound of someone clearing his throat behind me, like when you are about to yell something and your voice is not quite ready for it. I was so focused on escaping that even if someone yelled at me, I didn't listen. I didn't stop until I was a safe distance away. Then I collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. When I managed to calm down, I checked my pockets, and nope, no flashlight. I must have dropped it when I jumped out of the window. Great. Another reason to never do this again. All of this happened a few months ago, and at least it made a good story to tell at a bar. But last night, something funny happened. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was thirsty as hell. So I turned on the light on the side of my bed, and right beside the lamp there was that, a rusty and old flashlight. In the distance outside of my house, I heard someone clear his throat.
After more than a decade, my father gave my grandma her first grandchild, me. I was the only child in my family and became the center of everyone's focus. Soon after I grew and started going to school. Fortunately, there was one school in particular that was just a few blocks away from our home. It was a Catholic school. Fast forward a few years later, I entered 4th grade, and I was really lucky and happy that I got to be in the same class as my friends. First day of school came soon, and as usual, I was the first one to arrive. I settled in on the front row like I always did, and arranged my school books out of my bag, and just began to read one of them when I heard someone came out of the restroom. Yep, we had a restroom inside the classroom, stinky IKR. It was one of my friends, Patty. I called her excitedly, but she just looked at me and grabbed one of the chairs and turned it so it's facing the restroom, scraping the floor as it went. I shrugged it off, and I thought she was having a first day of school tantrum. Everyone then came one by one until the class was complete. It was time for our teacher to check our attendance, and she called on Patty, who was still facing the restroom, staring blankly within it. Our teacher went up to her, squatted in front of her to check what's going on. Then, when our teacher touched her shoulders, she suddenly stood up and was breathing raggedly, looking around the room, like she had snapped out of an episode or something. She was very pale and trembling. Then she began to bawl and looked as if she wanted to run from something. Our teacher hugged her, and she went with Patty to the clinic. Patty had been sent home due to high fever. While our teacher was gone, we came to inspect what Patty had been looking at inside the restroom. When we opened the light, it was muddy all over the floor, but what confused and scared us was the muddy footsteps going up the wall and the ceiling. We were so scared that we're frozen in our place until our teacher came back. We told her what we saw, and she was so shocked, and I remember the color being drained out of her face when she went in the restroom. That was the first and last day we spent in that classroom. It was closed and boarded up after it was blessed, and it was forbidden to be used for as long as I can remember being in that school. But if you think the happenings end here, you're wrong. It just started here.
When I was little, I slept, walked often. Things like running to my parents' room while they were on the couch, or just standing in the middle of my room in the middle of the night. Though, one story that my sister was the victim of really sticks out the most. My sister already thought the house was haunted, so she thought my sleepwalking meant I was possessed. One night she was up late playing games, and had looked over, and I was just laying on my back with my eyes open looking at the ceiling. My sister called for me, but of course, since I was asleep, I had no answer. Though, as she was creeped out by this, she put the covers over her head and decided to just go to sleep. After a while, she woke up later in the night. She said I was sitting straight up, staring straight ahead. My sister was terrified, so she yelled at me, and once again, went under the covers. After falling asleep once again, she woke up a last time. She once again ripped the covers off her head. Though when she did, the first thing she saw was me staring straight down at her, standing on the end of her bed. She said she had ran to our parents' room, people who had often witnessed my sleepwalking. When they went to check on me, they said I was perfectly sleeping in my bed like nothing happened. After this, they cleansed the house. That was the last time I ever slept walked.